Ahoy there, Lorcana fans. Welcome back to Camp Quest. Ian here. Whispers in the Well is almost here. It's coming out this week. You'll be able to go to your local game stores and pick up the set, play in a couple sealed events, hopefully. Last week, I looked at the 5 sort of top meta decks and how I think they're going to adjust going into this new format with some of the new cards that are going to, I think, make an impact on the deck list and the way they're going to play. So today, I wanted to take you through some of the more fringe decks that either showed up a little bit here and there in the metagame, were almost contenders, or were just a little bit out. Even some of these decks did have top placements, but they were not consistent. They were not the highest play rates, hence why I'm calling them and lumping them in with the fringe decks. So please don't take offense if you're one of the players that played these to a high finish or did well in your set champs with it, okay? So let's go ahead and dive into the 5 fringe decks. We're going to go ahead and start it off actually with a little 1A, 1B, just like last time with Ruby Sapphire. Alrighty, so here we have the 1A. This is going to be the Shark Control version. I think Ruby Sapphire honestly gets some huge additions in this set in a couple different ways, but I think they're divided between two strategies that are trying to win the game in different ways. So here we're looking at effectively getting close to what we used to know as shark control. So you're going to be ramping early with the TPO, the sail, and then what's nice here is this huge new inclusion that I think is really going to help break the deck open is this Cinderella. The Cinderella legendary from Whispers is cracked. It's so good. It's going to let you do what effectively you used to be able to do with How Far I'll Go, but it comes with a body, and you can potentially use it turn after turn if you can keep playing princesses. To pair this with, we also have the Kita, which is a princess, and it does ramp you again, so it can be a solid card to just slam onto the board on 4, knowing you're going to be able to get that ramp off the next turn, even if you can't use that ink on the following turn because it comes into play exerted. So really solid card. The other big inclusions here is in the action setup. So we have the Next Stop Olympus, which is a really unique card for playing in sharks, because if you have a character with 5 attack or higher, of which we have sharks and dragons, you're going to be able to ready a character for free instead of having to pay the 2 cost to do it, and then the next time that character challenges, they're going to gain a lore. So that can create some really unique opportunities, because you can have your shark out, swing it into something, play your Next Stop Olympus, ready it up, swing it into another something, pull that Next Stop Olympus right back, play it again, and kind of loop a Next Stop Olympus for multiple challenges until either your opponent's stuff is all gone or your shark is dead from taking damage. So really unique little opportunity there. We also get Dragonfire back, and I can't tell you how much I think this is going to help round things out. It is not the most efficient removal we've ever seen, but it is targeted. It does not care about stats. So long as the target is not warded, you're going to be able to detonate pretty much anything. And because it's an action, we can be pulling it back with Shark, which is something we sorely needed in this sort of Shark Control shell. I think Spooky Sight is similar in that the thing we were missing, and certainly it is no Be Prepared, but we didn't have a board wipe. Spooky Sight is going to help us have a little bit more opportunity to stay in the game against the faster decks in the format. The aggro decks that are going to be swarming the board with 1s, 2s, and 3s, we now have an answer for. Is it the most efficient? No. Is it going to be easy to get into play? Also no. But between your visions of the future, your develop your brains, we're hopefully going to be able to find it. And if you go ramp on 2, ramp on 4 with Cinderella, you're going to be able to go into that Spooky Sight on your 4th turn, which is notable and is often just in time to be able to actually handle your opponents. So, of course, we have the Pirate Life to loop around, as well as the sort of resource extension cycling cards like Develop and Visions and Sail. But we also have this new Mushu's Rocket. And this is the thing that I think is making me still want to play sharks, because here's the thing: in a format where we have a lot of single target removal, we have Hades flying around in every single blue deck, right? We have a lot of bounce, we have a lot of shuffle, and the green decks are very popular, where you're able to, like, if your opponent plays one big thing, you just Mother Knows Best it and then keep doing your stuff. So that makes slamming a shark actually pretty awkward, because you can pretty much bet they're going to have an efficient way to deal with it if they're in one of any number of colors. So just slamming a shark doesn't feel great. What we used to be able to do before is play Vitalisphere and rush our shark. Or in Ruby Amethyst, we used to be able to play our Peter Pan Shadowfinder and rush the shark. Now we can rush the shark again. This Mushu's Rocket is fantastic. You're going to be able to get a rush on the turn you play it. So if you are on 7 ink, you can go shark plus rocket, rush it, get an action back, you're good to go. But you can also then, it'll sit on the board, and as you get into the later turns where you have more and more and more ink, you can be blowing them up to rush something again. I do not think this is reason enough to run Tamatoa in a list like this, where you just need the amount of cards dedicated to the action package, but it is certainly a card that as you play through the game, even just playing 1 or 2 across the course of the game, if you play 2 Mushu's Rockets, across the course of the game, you have 4 opportunities to rush something, and that can really smooth things out, especially when you have things like Queen of Hearts, which are going to draw you cards when you would challenge stuff. And you also, of course, are going to be able to sometimes get these big bodies out, and because you're a blue deck, you're going to have ramped, and you can immediately, kill something with a Maleficent, then give it rush. That can be very, very powerful. So I also want to shout out this Lilo. I'm not 100% sold on it quite yet. There's 2 things that really excite me about it. The first is you do have tons of actions, and especially with Next Stop Olympus, you can potentially play 2, 3, 4 plus actions a turn, and once you hit 3, that Lilo can come down for free and ready something up. Well, obviously we can ready things up that we want to be challenging with. The other thing that's really nice, if you hit Kita instead of Cindy, and Cindy is always going to be your preferred line, but if you hit Kita instead of Cindy and you have a Lilo, you can actually Kita twice. So I really like what Lilo offers in terms of working with Kita. When it comes to the other things, we'll see. I think that there are plenty of other, sort of fringe options that we can be playing into here, but I think this core shell of Shark with all the actions, especially now that we have Dragonfire in there, we have the Hades, the Maleficent, and then just being able to occasionally loop Next Stop Olympus is going to be really, really cool. I think this is an awesome shell, but let's go ahead and switch over to the 1B option that I've been messing with as well. Okay, here is Coil Control. We're back with items. It feels really good, to be honest, after a set with basically no items of note, and our expensive Tamatoas sitting in our binders. I think Tamatoa is not going to be in as good of a situation as it was, obviously, with Popsicles in the format. But I think that this is about as close as we can get, and I do think that there's some real merit to playing red-blue items. It is definitely part of red-blue's core identity as an ink combination. It's part of blue's identity as a color, and we actually have some unique tricks we can do here. So the core concept here is obviously we're not playing the sharks, so we're not going to be trying to loop actions back and forth. Instead, we're setting up a potential draw engine with the Ink Runner, which is, of course, going to be able to pay 2 to put it into play, lets you draw a card when it comes into play. It's inkable. That's really nice as well. Now, it's like Popsicle for one more, except Popsicle lets you blow it up. Which was really important for being able to loop it with Tamatoa or Merlin's Carpet Bag. We can't blow it up just by itself, which is why we've included Belle's favorite book. I'm really jazzed about this combination because it's going to let us blow up our ink runners to ramp, and as we're working our way up into those higher ink thresholds, we can mitigate the impact of the cost of Ink Runner the later and later it goes, because every time we blow it up with Belle's favorite book, we're going to get our ramp in there. So we're not playing Cinderella here. Maybe it could be played, but the uninkable count's already kind of high, and I'm a little worried about that. So instead of playing the Cinderella, we're actually going to be trying to play Belle's favorite book on turn 4 whenever possible. But we still do have Scrooge McDuck, which is a fantastic turn 4 as well. It's a big body that can be played to the board, and it lets you look into your next top 4 cards for an item, which can get things going. For our removal package, instead, we're still running the Mushu's Rocket. That's just such a good card, and it's even better when we can situationally bring it back with Tamatoas. But we're still running, the Mal Dragons, but here we actually have a little bit of a better early game because we're bringing that 3-drop Belle back into the deck. We have 8 1-drop items that we're playing. We are working on the unconventional tool. I think it's going to be good enough in here. It's early on testing felt okay. But being able to play that into Bell, into an Ink Runner, and just get things going can be really nice. The Ink Runner, by the way, just real fast, it actually has that nice ability to give alert to something. So we don't actually have to really tech for evasive specifically, because our Ink Runner is going to give us the ability to give any of our stuff the ability to challenge evasive, which is really nice. But back to the early game, our Bells are going to be able to come down early, a 3/3 early in the game, contesting 1-drops and 2-drops, really nice. But we also have the 3-drop Sisu, which can remove 1 attacks or lowers when it comes into play. But obviously we're playing Sapphire Coil. We're going back to the red-blue roots, right? The Sisu on ice. We've got the coils in here so that we can, and actually with the Bell's favorite book, you don't even have to ink from hand. We can be inking by blowing up one of our other items, putting a card into our inkwell, minusing something, and then playing either Sisu or the new Headless Horseman as a form of removal. And then, of course, if we have Mushu's Rocket, we can give them all Rush. Very, very cool. The numbers, maybe we want 4 of each of them. Maybe 3 and 3 is enough. The Uninkable is a little bit awkward here, but we'll play with that as we refine, right? These are the early set 10 lists, right? Got to get in there, got to learn the meta to figure out what all needs to stay in, what can go. The spooky sites, just like the last deck, is our answer for, those super fast decks. Now we can answer them a little bit better, like, things like Tianas and stuff like that. We have the Sisus for. We can handle it. But just in case, we have the spooky sites, and we can always, like ramp away our own 2s and 3s, those Bells, those Tipos. If they're just lingering around and we need the ramp, we can always just cast it and we're fine to get that ink back into our inkwell. I have the 2 copies of Big Bell in here. My only concern about this deck is it can do a lot, it can draw a lot, it can play a lot, but it's got to close games a little bit faster, and that's what I'm hoping these Bells are going to help us do, is get these games finished. It can come in really cheap as it gets later into the game. It gets cheaper and cheaper to shift it, but even if you've ramped really high, obviously slamming it for 9 is totally fine. Just getting a big body out there, but you do really want to try to like shift it in for that really, really cheap effect. And then obviously coming into play, you can shuffle up to 3 items away, get 3 lore, just a nice little closer card. We'll see if it stays in the deck. It just depends on how it shapes up into the metagame. So yeah, I really like both of these shells, this 1A, 1B. I think Ruby Sapphire is going to come back. Do I think it's going to instantly make it a tier 1 deck? Probably not, but you never know. There's just something about Ruby Sapphire, the set. It just feels like the pieces are there. We just got to figure out that perfect combination of pieces so that it clicks, it's efficient, and it has answers to the other problem decks in the format. So really excited for Ruby Sapphire. But let's go ahead and move on now to Emerald Steel. All right, here. So Emerald Steel Tempo is one of my favorite sort of side decks. I've never really played it in a tournament, but I've always really enjoyed this sort of tempo archetype. Played a lot of Emerald Amethyst tempo. And so just that like fast but disruptive combination of cards is something I've always really enjoyed. And here I have been able to mess with some Emerald Steel tempo again, and I think it might be, I hate to say this, I might be wrong. It might be the most well-rounded version of it we've ever seen. So we've seen the all-in builds, and we, basically Emerald Steel aggro with like Chromacons, but you do have the Ursulas and some of those disruptive things. This is not that. This is really trying to make the most out of the song packages and the ability to loop them with max goof both 3 and 6. There's some really great stuff that came out in this set across the board, but probably the one that's going to make the biggest impact in terms of being in multiple decks is He Hurled His Thunderbolt. I mean, duh, right? Like another, effectively a baby, Along Came Zeus. Really essential, in my opinion, for this metagame. It does only do 4 damage, which is not notably 5, and 5's better. But He Hurled His Thunderbolt is going to be able to be cleaning up a lot of things as you go through the game. And it's nice in this deck specifically because it can be looped with the big max goof, not the little one, but the big one. And because we can sing it with Webby Vanderquack on turn 2. Webby is a really cool new legendary, which is going to serve a dual purpose. Against other tempo, mid-range, even aggro decks, we're looking to shift Webby and immediately seeing Thunderbolt to just nuke whatever their biggest thing is, nuke their play on turn 2 or 3, right? But then in matchups where we are the aggressor and we're forced to play against other blue decks, Webby can quest and let us actually ramp from the top of our deck if we're behind on ink, which is perfect for a deck that doesn't really want to be like inking super high, but still does need to ink high enough to get its 6-drops into play, because we're leaning into this new 6-drop Goliath as effectively a dock at the end of every turn that it stays in play. And it's a 6/5 body that quests for 2. Fantastic, especially because it has the added benefit of messing with the opponent's hand as well. So if the opponent if the opponent can't remove Goliath, they're going to have to end their turn dumping their hand down to 2, which for certain decks like Blurple or even like Baja Blast, if for whatever reason they have a hand of 3+ cards and they can't get rid of Goliath, which admittedly is sometimes a tall order, but you never know, they're going to have to dump themselves back down to 2 as well. But really the big benefit is for you to empty your hand, play the Goliath, put a big questing threat, but also refill your hand at the end of that turn so that you can keep the pressure on turn after turn after turn. That's why we have Goliath, and we're also playing Doc. Could you just play Goliath? Probably. Could you just play Doc? Also probably. But in this scenario, like, I like the idea of this just sort of having that additional, the additional draw power, the additional like endurance to get deeper into matchups against controlling decks. We're also, of course, you can see filtering in a few other new cards. The Black Heron is just a 2-cost 3/3. It's just good. The other card I'm really excited about trying is this David Xanatos. I actually haven't gotten to play him in a game yet, which is a bummer. He just never comes up at the right time. Thus far, I haven't drawn him in the early game, but I think that when we're trying to dump hand to be able to play our docks, and our Goliath's just another card that can come into play and immediately deal 2 damage to something little or finish off a trade. Like, I think it's a very underrated card in this set, and one that like I'm really excited to be working with. So that's my Emerald Steel Tempo deck. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on this, but obviously like being able to recycle our songs here is just going to be great, because we're trying to never let things stick, or especially never let anything good stick. Bounce those genies and Dumbos right back to their hand. Don't let those things stick around. Once we get a wind-up board, we can start nuking them with Strength and Thunderbolt too. So, Emerald Steel Tempo, really excited for this, and honestly, one of the most like fun, like, I don't know, you just kind of feel mean, but in a good way. So Emerald Steel Tempo, really cool. Give it a try. All right, so we've got another Goliath deck here, but this one is not just a Goliath deck, it's just a Gargoyles deck. I think most of the like thematic like components of this set, playing detectives as an archetype, even playing like Boost as like a primary build around, I just don't think they're that good. Gargoyles, I kind of feel the same way, except in the context of Ruby Steel. Obviously, Gargoyles are almost exclusively in Ruby Steel. In fact, they might be exclusively in Ruby Steel now that I think about it, except for Demona, who I think is the villain Gargoyle. But what's really fascinating here is Ruby Steel has a great way to leverage it. We are being able to play bulky, overstated units and dump our hand down so that we do not have to pay the price of all of our Gargoyles, which don't want to ready if you have a big hand size. And we have a lot of ways to do that because we have a fantastic density of quality cards in cost like 1 through 4, and then some great top-end cards in 5 and 6 to push us over the edge. Along with that, we not only have the Steel Songs and Strength of Raging Fire and He Hurled His Thunderbolt, we also have Light the Fuse from set 8, I think, which is going to be that a little bit of an additional mana or resource efficient removal, just to give us an extra little bit of burst on removing key things. Of the new cards, I really like this 1-drop Tinkerbell. I mean, I think it's gonna be in contention for like a Ruby staple card, just because it's going to be sitting there questing in your opponent's face, and anything that they want to run into it that they have in like costs 1 through 3 is likely to die from it, especially if you have a Lumiere out and all of a sudden it has 4 defense. They're going to have to trade their Big Bell into your 1-drop Tinkerbell. That sounds terrible for most opponents. They're not going to want to take that trade. It's going to sit there on the board for a while. Obviously, in our ones, we have Captain Hook Mulan. Amazing staple cards. Like I mentioned, on 2, we have Lumiere, we have Doc, but we also have Hudson and Brooklyn, which are awesome gargoyles, which kind of do different things. We have Hudson to fix our hand a little bit. It's a nice 2/4 stat line. Meanwhile, we have Brooklyn to be an evasive contester. It can question your opponent's face if they don't have evasive answers, or, and more often, it's going to serve as a way to deal with opposing evasive characters like the Dumbos and the Genies and the Elsas, etc., etc. And as a 2-cost 3/2, we have a lot of 3/1 evasives. This one is a 3/2, which really matters because we know that there are some steel decks out there playing things like Tinkerbell. We also know that there's Malicious, Mean, and Scaries, so we don't really want 1 defense things out there unless they're sort of throwaway cards. And for an evasive answer like this, we would not want to really be playing the 1 defense versions. We'd much rather have that extra defense so that we can stick around a little bit longer. And obviously, it gets the added benefit, of course, of being able to be buffed up by Lumiere to hit that 4 threshold, which matters for removing Genies. So, yeah, really cool there. On 3s, we got the Bronx. We have Lexington. Again, big bodies, hard to deal with for the opponent. I'm not sure about Bronx just because the Reckless is a little awkward, but he is a huge stat line. Hermes, I'm really excited for. Getting a rush here in the deck is going to help a lot. But then as we get into the 4s, and this is the part that I'm really excited for because we have Goliath, which is the Gargoyle payoff. And look, like, I'm not big on these synergy decks most of the time, but a 4-cost 5/5 that's inkable that sometimes lets you gain lore when you're challenging with any of the types that you already want to play, and that's the kicker. We don't really have to play any of these gargoyles except for maybe Bronx. We don't really have to play any of these gargoyles that, like, we don't want to. Like, we want to play these guys already. And so, like, having that payoff for something that we already wanted to do, I think might be worth it. I know that our Mayor Wind Dancer is worth it. Just like, look at those stats. For a 4-cost, it is absolutely disgusting. A 5/7 for 4 is gross. It's also one of the best singers we're going to have in this deck because we're able to, like, sing Strength or sing Thunderbolt, and normally the vulnerability is, like, putting your thing exerted means they're going to just trade back into it with something. I'd love to see them trade into a 5/7 on turn 4. And then, of course, in our top end, we've got Mushu, which is sort of a big payoff for challenging, but I'm also really excited about this 5-drop Shift Tinkerbell. Because it gives us a way to deal with cards that like to sit around on the board and not be attacked, which we have removal for sometimes, but having the ability to shift onto a 1-drop Tinkerbell for a surprise little challenge, so you play like, you go like Tinkerbell, Hudson, and then shift Tinkerbell, you can tap down one of those ramp Cindy's that are going to be all over the place and take it out. You can have like Tinkerbell, Captain Hook, whatever, and, you know, you can even just play into the 1-drops or like you played a Lumiere. I mean, you can play multiple lines that let you take out problem cards that your opponent has in play. And then a 5/3 stat line, again, is just going to be a little bit, it's going to be aggressive still. So it's still going to have the same impact as the Tinkerbell. Now, people may still want to take it out. But again, there's not much that's surviving a challenge conflict with this Tinkerbell. So, yeah, really excited for Ruby Steel Gargoyles. I think there's another way to go into Ruby Steel. Ruby Steel is just always on the cusp. You know, always the bridesmaid, never the bride has been Ruby Steel so far. Hopefully we can get over that in this set. And I think the way to do that is just big stat bodies. But there's also, you know, power line songs, which I think could be a thing. I just have not yet stumbled on a build that I feel super enthusiastic about. Just a little clunky, so hopefully somebody else can do the work and figure that one out for me. All right, let's go ahead and move on here to my favorite color combination, Ruby Amethyst. Alrighty, Ruby Amethyst Midrange. So I played a lot of Ruby Amethyst last set. I desperately wanted it to be good. I had to be talked out of playing it at Milwaukee, which was probably a good thing. Dogs was definitely the better deck, and Ruby Amethyst just takes too many bad matchups. At least it does. It did this set. But next set, we get some huge new additions, which definitely changed the way it wants to play. So we've got all of these amazing new cheap guys, the Tinkerbell and the Diablo, which is going to let us put high stat quality units into play that the opponent is going to have to deal with awkwardly. They're going to lose, the control opponent's going to lose their stuff along the way. I really like this new Diablo for Ruby Amethyst because, like, once we eliminate the songs package, which, you know, we had been using before, Powerline and Maui Shark and, Singing Second Stars, once we remove those, we actually have a lot of uninkable space. And so we're able to filter in cards that are a little bit hard to justify otherwise. This 2-cost 3/3, the Quest for 2, it's a better version of Mr. Smee. It's just uninkable, which limits how many decks can find room to play it. And I think this deck can work. Lumiere is, of course, an MVP card, putting your characters outside of the range of Under the Sea, letting your things trade up into bigger things. It's just a fantastic card, and one that's like one of the few reasons to play in Ruby in the previous set, and it continues to be good here. We get into the awesome like damage movement dueling cards, right? We get Medusa, which I've got 2 copies of. I like the ability to bounce a 2-drop when I'm on the play. It's a little situational in the mid-game. Usually in the mid-game, it will become an ink, but sometimes it can deny lethal just for 1 extra turn and really matter. Mother Gothel, of course, is the card that, like, you don't always want to play it on turn 3. You don't mind playing it on turn 3. You just have to wait for value. But one of the best things you can do is your more aggressive opponent is questing in your face, and you've got a couple things that can trade in. They think you can't do that math and like remove everything. You slam a Mother Gothel and just start shifting damage all over the place. It's really, really fun, very skill expressive, and just a powerful card in the right circumstances. So one that I think is going to work with all of these high stat characters we have in play. We have the Hermes, of course, the new Rush character. That's a huge reason to play Ruby as well. And then just sort of skipping ahead past the standard evasive affair of Dumbo, Genie, Iago, and Elsa, where you have the new 5-drop Hades Looking for a Deal as sort of a card draw engine. Now, this could be all sorts of stuff. We could play like the new Great Illuminary. We could try to play libraries again. I'm curious to see if this Hades, which most of the time is going to say draw 2 cards, I'm curious to see if this makes a good addition to the deck or not, because if it does not, we may need to find other forms of card draw. But if this is reliably a 5-cost draw 2, and you kind of, especially against the more controlling matchups, you just want to dirtle with it, like, either you ink your Clarabelle, or either you ink your Tinkerbell, or your Mayor Winddancer, or I draw 2 cards. And most of the time people are going to sorry, not ink, but bottom deck. Most of the time, people are going to choose to give you 2 cards. And if they do bottom deck it, and this is a 5-drop that says bottom deck the best character on your opponent's board, I think you're happy with that too. The big thing is you just have to always know that you're going to get the lower side of the deal. And so if you play with it with that in mind, I think it can still be effective. But we will see. The one card I do know I think is going to be pretty good is this Headless Horseman. It's a card you can't play 4 copies of in a build like this, right? But it's a card that can just come down and blow up a Genie or an Elsa or a Tiana or a Cinderella or all sorts of things that you just, or a shift target for a Clarabelle or something. Like, the amount of things that this can just come in and destroy right out the gate is very relevant. Like, I know we're used to Madame Medusa, the 3-power, and we're like, wow, this is just kind of a worse Medusa. It comes down a turn earlier. It quests for 2, which is really nice. The 4/2 stats are not perfect. I won't lie to you. The 4/2 stats aren't perfect, but you do have a nice little kicker if it can ever banish something. So I really like the Headless Horseman as a 2 of, and at only 10 uninkables, I think we're in a really good spot for making the most of it, and it won't sit in your hand too long. And then, of course, at the top end, we have Demona, the card that I think is going to do the most work for Ruby Amethyst here in this set, because it lets you still play up-tempo, it lets you slam a huge body, exert a bunch of stuff, and this deck loves to challenge. We want to be hitting things with our huge statted characters. We want to be moving damage counters around with Mother Gothels. Demona is perfect for that, letting us get a huge flip turn and then refill our hand afterwards is the kind of card that like I think Ruby Amethyst is going to really want to have. We got the Shift Mulans. I love it. I think it's the kind of card that like your opponents either have to respect it or choose to live or die by your top decks, and I really like that. This could totally be something else, but I personally am a big Shift Mulan fan. And then especially because we can also do things like in the mid to late game, be drawing 3 or 4 cards with Dumbos and then find it, with enough ink still to shift it. So these Mulans tend not to get removed, and because they're so good with the Mother Gothel, I think it's worth keeping them in the list. And then we've got Hypnotic Strengths in here just as a way to pop illusions and to get a couple key, buffs on things. But I could totally see these being something else. Another card I'm really excited to try out here, if these Medusas don't pan out, is getting the 3-drop Cheshire Cat in, because I think that will be a really powerful sort of pseudo Bell effect, but it fits our curve better because on 5, we really want to be playing these guys and not Big Bell. So that's another card that was just out of the deck, and I think it's going to take me a little more testing to determine if I want those in there. So let's go ahead and shift our attention over to the last deck, Sapphire Steel, which I know is not really a fringe deck to a lot of people because it has done relatively well. But I think in terms of play rate and even like its overall success rate, I think it's fair to kind of put a step below the 5 decks I did for my 5 meta decks getting an upgrade. So we've included it here, have to include it because I think it does get a lot of new cards that can really level it up. Okay, Sapphire Steel Midrange is an interesting deck. It's been through a lot of debate and discourse over the Fabled meta because there was never a true consensus on the best way to play it. There was a lot of different theories and a lot of different sort of stylistic choices that would factor into the decision. Did you play the Scar Allies package? It was very, very explosive when it worked. And when it didn't work, your Scar would come into play and immediately get destroyed, and then you don't have card draw, and you also are playing a lot of lower quality cards as the allies that you're trying to blow up with Scar. So it could be anywhere from incredible to really rough. And then, of course, we had the Jasmine. Well, hey, if you're already playing allies, the Jasmine's really great. But again, do I want to include enough allies to justify playing the Shift Jasmine that's dual link, right? And then I also have to play lower quality units in the 1-drop Jasmines, right? And then, of course, you had the people that were like, you know what? The heck with all of that. We're not doing the Jasmine thing. We're not doing the Scar thing. We're just going to play ramp into good stuff. I think the truth will lie somewhere in the middle. And in this build, I have decided to lean once again into our new Steel Legendary, Goliath, which means we're not trying to build a huge draw 8, discard 2 turn with Scar. Again, we're staying relatively lean, and playing Goliath. We're playing the Jasmines. We're playing the Docks because the Docks are always in there. And we've also got 2 copies of Beyond the Horizon, which can be really nice because we've got some of our big 7-drop heavy hitters that never leave the list in Hades and Vincenzo. Now, this is my personal preference. I want to try building it without Cinderella for 2 reasons. One, I do think Cinderella is really good. I do think you could totally go, ramp on 2 into Cindy, ramp on 4 into one of your 6 drops of choice, being Goliath or Tinkerbell. I think that's really good. Do not get it twisted. I think that's really good. But also, I really like shifting Jasmine and playing Pleakley to ramp that way. And so I wanted to stick with that angle, and what that lets us do is playing the Shift Jasmine does mean we have a little bit of more flexibility in the mid game of getting cards into play that will find us other cards and can keep cycling us through, because that Sapphire Steel can be a little bit of a challenge to you have to get to your top end, but in order to compete with the other top end heavy decks like the Blurples, you have to have enough card draw that you don't just top deck into T-Pos and Jasmines, right? You need quality. You need unit quality. And so we're trying to do that here. We have enough allies where Jasmine's going to be able to find something between the T-Pos, the Docks, the Pleakleys, the Lexington, Bagheera, Tinkerbell, and Vincenzo. All units minus the typo, that we want to be seeing. I'm sketchy about playing just 4 copies of One Drop Jasmine, so I went to 6. Up to you. I also really want to try this Headless Horseman. We have enough actions to justify it, right? We've got the Sail, Visions, we have the Strength. We are playing 2 copies of Thunderbolt because we have the uninkable space, and obviously Jasmine can shift in and sing it, which can be good in certain matchups. I wanted to find room for a third, and I didn't find it. You could just go up 1 uninkable, but I was trying to keep it relatively lean for testing purposes, so that like I can know, like I don't have brick games when I test, and I can kind of feel out what's working, what's not working. So we have enough actions, and because I do believe action decks are going to be popular, hitting this Headless Horseman in the end game is going to feel like often a slightly better Vincenzo, and it has the added benefit of it will mess up your hand a little bit, but it could mess up your opponent's hand a lot bit. The reason it's not messing up your hand too much usually is you're playing on a really low hand size, hoping to be refilling with Goliath and Doc, or finding answers in the form of playing a vision into something that you want to be seeing, or finding an ally after questing with a Jasmine. So like that's the idea here. I think Headless Horseman could work in here. Let me know what you think about it. I know Sapphire Steel, there's a lot of like big Sapphire Steel heads out there. It is the kind of deck that like I play for fun. I would never say that I am like a Sapphire Steel big brain player. Like I've played a lot of Emerald Amethyst, Ruby Amethyst, Dog, stuff like that. Those are the decks that I really do feel like I can confidently speak to with a certain level of expertise. Sapphire Steel is a deck that I just sort of play when I want to have fun. And this is really fun. And more than that, I do just feel like the inherent power spikiness of Jasmine slamming a Pleakley on it after you get an ally is just so dirty. I don't really want to move off of that yet. So that's why we have built it in this direction. Let me know what you think in the comments about this deck or any of the other decks. If you have a deck that you would like me to talk about on the channel, leave it down in the comments below. Let me know. Of course, if you like the video, like it and consider subscribing. We are almost to 1,000 subscribers, so I'm really hoping that we will get there soon, maybe with this video. So yeah, let me know what you're thinking about it and what else we can do on the channel. And without further ado, I will let you guys get out of here. Good luck on your Whispers set releases, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.